It is time. I have been putting this off because I have so much to say about this that I keep thinking about more I want to add. So I've decided this will likely not be the only video that I make about hand quilting. I truly love hand quilting so much. It is very relaxing and meditative. It's something I can do with my people. So if everybody's watching a YouTube, something that I don't want to watch, I can have my hand quilting and kind of be part of it, but not only doing that. I feel like I'm kind of doing something I enjoy too. So I have been so excited. We recorded video way back when I was working on this Gladys quilt, and it has just been such a crazy few months that I feel like it has taken a lot. Even now I'm like, okay, I think I'm ready for this. I have so much to say. So bear with me. Like I said, I'll likely make this part 1 because this is going to be like hand quilting basic. I think there's other things I want to add that I think would make the video incredibly long and maybe just even a little daunting. So I think I'll, have another video down the road that talks a little bit more about more than just the basics. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm super excited to share all the things. Probably the biggest question I get is about the tools that I use, which is so understandable. It is pretty daunting. Because I hand quilt on the go so much, I tend to keep mine in some sort of little travel zipper pouch. But these are my tools that I really, really love for hand quilting. These two are the marking tools that I'll share about in the video. This is the water erasing pen. I really liked this one. I mean, it's blue, so I guess there's certain colors you wouldn't be able to use it on. But generally, this has been a really great pen. I feel good about it coming out. It's become my go-to. And then this is a Hera marker. It's a Clover brand. It has a nice thin edge, so you can use this for marking your quilt. Honestly, a dull butter knife would work as well. You don't want anything that's going to damage your quilt, but this is a great little tool for marking. My thimble is my other branded item that I really love. It's the Clover leather thimble. It's my second one, but I've been hand quilting quite a bit for maybe 5 or 6 years by now, and I've only gone through, this one's not technically gone through, but it's not in the best shape. But these, I use a size medium, so they are sized. I say that so that there are sizes when you order, so if you know about your hands, kind of what size you think you might need, you want to make sure you get the size you need. The thread I like is this DMC size 8 pearl cotton. Typically I use this ecru shade. I feel like it blends with most things. Every once in a while, like in the video, I'll choose a color thread. Someone did ask about worrying about the color bleeding. I have never experienced that, or really actually probably not given it a ton of thought. Maybe I should, but I haven't had any problems to make me worry about it. I will say this, I usually buy in bulk, maybe 6 at a time, but I think I'm down to my last one, so it's time to put another order in. I'll put links for all this though in the notes. The snips I have are not, I don't know what brand these are. I don't think it says Eagle. I don't think that's the brand though. These are fine. I had some really good, beautiful ones that got confiscated at an international airport. They shouldn't have. They're not a length, but I mean, they're pretty pokey. I can kind of see that. So I bought these. They're fine. I liked my other ones better. Honestly, I don't know that it really matters. You just need some sort of snips. And the needle is probably the biggest question I get, which I'm always hesitant to answer because I'm really bad about just throwing a bunch of needles into my drawer, and who knows which ones I'm actually using or grabbed. This brand though, the Leishan Sashiko needle, I really, really do like this. I like the length of it. I like how big the eye is for getting the thicker thread through. And I like that the eye is golden because my eyes are not getting younger. And so it helps me to be able to thread my needle. It helps. These are really the tools that I tend to use. Other than that, I would say, when you're marking, you'll need some sort of ruler for the most basic of stitches, but this is essentially it. Okay, since we're not using a hoop or a frame to quilt on, I'm going to recommend you start off not doing it just in your lap. Use a tabletop, a countertop, something that you can lay your quilt out on so you're not fighting the weight of the quilt as you're trying to work your stitches. So to mark your lines, you're going to need a ruler and a hera marker. These just kind of leave a crease instead of a permanent mark on your quilt. So I'm measuring, I know I want to do the middle of this row. I'm measuring that middle spot, and I line up my ruler. And with this hera marker, you need to really kind of give it a little room to account for the thickness of the hera marker. There's another one I like better that I'll link. But you'll mark this, and this just kind of gives your quilt a crease that you can use for marking your quilt lines. Another option is a water-soluble pen. Sometimes the hera marker is just a little bit faint for me to be able to see, so I like to use this one. I do recommend testing any pen like this, though, on your fabric and make sure it comes off. Okay, let's start at the end. I make a very simple knot on the end of my thread. It's not even a fancy knot. I just make a simple knot. At the edge here of Gladys, there's a little bit of fabric that you trim up at the very end. So I'm going to use that. But really, you can use the batting, whatever, to kind of start in, because we're going to have a method that we use to close that off. So here you can see that my knot is exposed on the top. That's fine. It's going to get taken care of later. Make sure when you sew, you're not tugging on your thread so much that it puckers, because this stitch can gather if you're not careful. So be nice and easy. And this is called either a rocking stitch. It's a bit of a running stitch. You are going to try to get a couple of stitches on each needle before you pull your needle through, and that's why the longer sashiko needle is really nice. Sometimes you'll have moments where you need to start in the middle of the quilt though, so the next thing we're going to do is to show you how to pop your knot so that it's not exposed at the end. Here's the knot I've got ready to go. And I'm looking to start the next stitch length up. So out to the side, I'm going to put my needle in through the very top layer and then go one stitch length up. And then I'm going to push it through. It's only going through the top layer. Now you're going to pop your knot. So this is the method I do. I just kind of wiggle and tug gently. You can see it's not all the way through to the back. And now my knot is secure underneath that top layer of fabric, and I'm ready to start quilting from the middle of the quilt. Okay, at this point, I'm going to just take my time to do a few stitches to show you. One thing you want to think about when you're hand quilting is not just keeping your stitches on the top even, but you want to think about the gap in between the stitches also staying even. This is actually what even stitches look like. They should be even on the front and on the back. If you make small stitches on only the front, but there's pretty big gaps on the back, then the back is not going to be very pretty. And if you're doing something like a whole cloth quilt, there isn't really a proper front or back to it. So you want to make sure your stitches are staying as even as possible as you're going, both the stitch itself and the gap between them. Let's say I need a tie off here. I'm going to wrap my needle around my thread, and I like to hold so that my knot is going to be above where I finished quilting there, maybe by about a half an inch. probably about double the stitch length that I'm doing. So there's my knot. The next step that I'm going to do is take my needle and I'm going to sew one more stitch, going only through the top, maybe grabbing some batting, but only through the top. And it will stop you at that knot. You should have a little bubble, and again, pop your knot. Now your knot is buried underneath your quilt top, and then trim your thread, and now you're ready to rethread your needle. Okay, now we need to talk about how to work with quilting without a hoop or a frame when you're in the middle. The edges are a lot easier, but in the middle I think it can be a little bit more complicated. So here I'm starting in the middle. I've already popped my needle and I have a line drawn. It's a little bit hard to see. I like to pull the quilt towards me so that it doesn't tug and feel like it's pulling away from me. And you can see I'm clamping the quilt with my hand. Now I'm left-handed, but I'm using that back right hand, my middle finger on the back, to kind of help and support that needle as it comes through. All it's doing is directing it back up. So I move it out of the way when the needle's coming down so I don't get poked. And then I use it to then gently push it back up at the length that I need it to go. So that back hand is doing a lot of work, and it's something that you can't really see, but it's clamping it down and then doing the work of helping to push the needle back up at the right stitch length. Okay, let's say we're about to finish up our quilt where you've got the final stitches. It's going to go to the end, and you're going to go all the way off the end into the batting a little bit. And one important thing that you need to do when you are hand quilting is to finish off the quilt before you cut it and square it up by sewing a victory lap right around the edges of the quilt. This helps to secure all of your knots from your hand quilting. It really is just a good idea in general. I even have some friends who will go ahead and put on their binding before they start hand quilting. Whatever method works for you, you just want to make sure that you really take time and sew on your machine right along the edge. One thing often people don't get to see is the back of a quilt that's been hand quilted, and I wanted to show this is how mine generally look. Not perfect, but fun. Okay, it's the end of the day. I'm working on editing, and I realized I didn't really give you any closing thoughts. I would love to hear from you if you have questions or thoughts. Any trouble points, please feel free to comment in the comment section. I'm going to do my best to try to get back in there and really answer any questions you might have. It's such a good thing to try on something small. I would really recommend starting on something like a small pillow, starting with fabrics that are going to be more of a loose weave to get your needle through. It will just frustrate you less if you have a fabric with a little bit of a looser weave. So something like a woven, like a Fabulism fabric, a Ruby Star Warp and Weft, maybe something like a Robert Kaufman kitchen window. Those ginghams can be a really great way of practicing your stitch length. All of those things I would highly recommend. And then I did have a question about batting. I tend to use Hobbs 80/20 batting. It is a nice thickness. It's not too thick to work with. A thicker like wool or like a puff batting, those are really hard to like get your stitches even with. So if you're just starting off, look for a batting like a Hobbs 80/20. That's really my go-to that I most highly recommend for my hand quilting projects. So I hope these final little thoughts and tips help. And if you have anything else, please feel free to ask. I am here to help you get started on hand quilting.